Welcome back to the Fallon Forum. That's Max Wellman, and this half of our program sponsored in part by the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Summit that's coming up on November 9th. If you want to start a business, that's the place to go. 400 people showed up last year. 100 great business ideas came out of the conference. Go online at iesusa.org. And I also want to thank Iowa Cure for helping to sponsor this program and our conversation tonight about the sex offender registry. Okay, I've been getting some mail on this, Galen. Galen Boffman is our guest, folks. He's with International Cure, and CURE stands for Citizens United for the Rehabilitation of Errants. And getting some mail on this, and if Facebook will allow me, I will share some of it with you. Okay, well, for some reason, it's cutting off some of my mail. I don't know why it's doing that. But, I mean, how do you respond to this comment, Galen? I asked the question, does the sex offender registry law, and specifically the residency bill that really gained a lot of attention, does it make any sense at all? What are your thoughts on Iowa's sex offender registry? And one person writes, "It is far from perfect, but I do like the ability to check my area for child predators. I would be happy if those were the only people listed." How do you respond to that?
It's a really interesting phenomenon. The public that feels that way is basically being fooled into a false sense of security. 95% of sexual offenses are committed by somebody who's not on the registry. It's not committed a previous sexual offense. The Department of Justice, United States DOJ, tracks the rate at which various offenders reoffend, and they say that only 5.3% of sexual offenders will reoffend.
And yet a lot of the people, once they're on the registry, they remain on there for, well, in some cases, for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So that registry must be growing in leaps and bounds. We're all going to be on the sex offender registry someday.
So
maybe not all of us, but gosh, it's got to be huge at some point.
The Texas registry, I was given a statistic recently, grew by 5,000 people. Last year alone, which was basically the entire sex offender population for Dallas. It grew by that size in just 1 year. And in many states, and this is part of the Adam Walsh Act, juveniles, kids that have consensual underage things, maybe inappropriate things, maybe they play doctor when they're 12 with some other kids, they can end up on
That's all it takes is playing doctor?
Absolutely, yeah. And interestingly, the way the law is crafted, because of the age of the victim, not really what actually happens, but just because of the age of the other party, those charges are frequently categorized as the worst of the worst charges.
My brothers will probably kill me for saying this, but I remember once playing strip poker as kids. That probably would have got us in trouble today.
It probably would have, yeah.
Gosh, wow. Okay, I'm glad I was born then. But yeah, I mean, it really has gotten crazy. So what do you say to Judith, who writes, I think there are inhumane elements to the law. I mean, you would obviously agree with that.
Yeah, and those inhumane elephants, yeah, there you go. The elephant in the room, if you will.
That was a heck of a slip.
I think they come from, I just got off the plane. I think it comes from the fact that we are viewing these people as other. When we define them as sex offenders, what does that really mean? Well, if you know much about the law, you would recognize that it could really mean a whole vast array of things. It could mean that they are in fact serial rapists. It could mean that they committed incestuous child molestation, or it could mean that they skinny dipped with their girlfriend back in the 70s.
Wow. So let me ask you that. Here's another one. Anastasia writes, it's way too broad, so people who were drunk and peed in a bush are indistinguishable from child molesters and rapists. Are there really people on the sex offender registries who got drunk and peed in a bush?
Amazingly so, there are.
And what's the sex offense there? Public exposure?
Public exposure, yeah.
Wow.
Or public indecency, I think, in some states.
I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, that pretty much denigrates any value to the sex offender registry.
Right.
Because the guy who got drunk and peed on a bush is on there.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just lulls people into a false sense of security.
Right. I want to welcome an anonymous guest to the conversation here. This is a woman who is a mother of a sex offender, and she wishes to remain anonymous. I can certainly understand, given how the sentiment on this issue. Welcome to the program. Speak right into the microphone. Thank you. And tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I have a son at Cherokee, Iowa, and I go down to visit, and there's just a lot of mismanagement there.
What is he in for? Or is that not okay? If that's, you'd rather not say that. But he's been in for 10 years.
He's there for. It's with an adult, and it's not a child offender. Okay. It's with an adult over 21. But one of my huge griefs is the way that they take care of these men. There's about 120 men incarcerated at Cherokee, Iowa, and none of them have had dental care. So
they don't get dental care?
They do not get dental care. They can be there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years, and they have never had a dental an appointment, a teeth cleaning, any kind of care, unless they pay for it themselves. And
how do they have money to pay for it?
They don't. So they don't get the care. They don't.
Unless some family member or friend pays for it.
Right. And many of them have no care. Also, medical, they do not get an annual physical. And their care down there, they have a couple of nurses that are figureheads. They really aren't of too much value.
So are conditions worse there in the sex offender unit than they would be in Iowa's other prisons?
Yes, I would say. Yes. Yes. These men are throwaway men. They don't seem to care about them or nurture them. The director there, everything has to go through him, and to me, he's completely a huge disappointment.
And do some of these men get out eventually? I mean, is there any hope for your son getting out? Is he?
There's no one that has graduated from the program. There's been some court orders by a judge that has released some of the men, but
it took a court intervention to have that accomplished?
Yes, because the institution in Cherokee has fought it tooth and nail. They don't want to, they want to guarantee their jobs, their union there. And, if they start losing their men, they start losing their jobs there. There's about 120 men incarcerated.
So to what extent, Galen, do you think this is about jobs? I mean, there are a lot of people employed in criminal justice. Has this really become a jobs program?
Yeah, it really is an industry. And
so it's not just for politicians to prove that they're tough on crime.
No, but that's true too. Yeah, no, it's a countrywide phenomenon. Interestingly, the American Psychiatric Association did a 5-year study back in the mid-'90s and came out with a 180-some page report called Dangerous Sex Offenders, a Task Force Report of the American Psychiatric Association. And I actually have a copy of it with me here. And the amazing thing about this report is that they took a very clear stance on the civil commitment of sexual offenders. And their conclusion is that there should be no such thing as the civil commitment of sexual offenders. Mm-hmm. So you were asking about the financial, economic interest here for the people making buku bucks off of doing this. The guy that testified against me for the prosecution in my civil commitment trial was shown by my counsel through public information requests to have made $2.3 million.
How much?
$2.3 million the previous fiscal year, just testifying for the prosecution in these cases. Wow. So if that's just one expert, Hughes, and you can see why the expert reports would be biased if they have a direct financial incentive in testifying for a particular position.
So civil commitment is really a way to keep people locked up after their sentence has been discharged.
Yes, and the legislature has not minced words about that. Like, that is clearly the stated purpose.
Yeah. We have an interesting vote coming up here in Polk County in 2 weeks. It's an $81 million referendum to support preservation of the existing courthouse, which nobody really argues against, but also basically expanding the court system, giving the courts more room. And and again, regardless of how you feel about that, one of the tools used to promote this to the voters, because they need to get 60%. Interestingly, there's been $300,000 spent promoting this, mostly by lawyers and downtown business interests. There's been nothing spent on the other side at all. But the argument is that, the argument being made to the public is, we need to protect you from dangerous offenders, and we need this additional space to do that. Yeah. And that really bugs me, because that's not, I say, show me the data that shows that right now we have a serious problem with offenders breaking loose, not doing their time, getting off on technicalities, as one of the brochures says. Show me we have that problem. And I can't, that information is not being presented. So again, it comes back to the issue of using the, quote, tough on crime perspective as a way to win an election, in this case, to win an $81 million bond referendum.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think they call it, scaring up votes for a reason.
Yeah.
Fear-mongering is a very powerful tool to inspire action.
Well, again, I'm delighted to have you in the studio, and I think a lot of us are happy to have your perspective shared in Des Moines and elsewhere in Iowa. And again, you'll be speaking tomorrow night, Friday night, October 25th.
And also on Sunday is the main event.
Okay, Sunday. Sorry. Okay, so the main event is Sunday. That's right, Sunday at Grace United Methodist Church at 2 o'clock. 1:30. Okay, I was close. 1:30.
I'll probably still be talking at 2 o'clock.
I'm sure you will. 1:30 at Grace United Methodist Church. That's 3800 Cottage Grove in Des Moines. Galen Boffman, the Communications Director for International Cure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ed.
And thank you for Dave for calling in. Thank you for our other guests sharing your perspective about your son's situation. Thanks for the folks who wrote and shared. I didn't get to all the comments. There's quite a few more, so I'll have to go to my Facebook page, folks, if you want to see some of the other comments on this conversation, or if you want to share your own comment. And you're welcome to sign up for my email so I can keep in touch with you once a week with an update. It's fallonforum@gmail.com. I want to thank all of our supporters who made the show possible. Again, the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Summit coming up on November 9th at Drake University. Go to iesusa.org, and for only $35, you register for a great day-long event that includes not just great workshops, but breakfast and lunch. Can't beat that. I also want to thank Hawk Restaurant, H-O-Q, Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut in the East Village neighborhood, where 90% of the food comes from Iowa farms, Iowa sources. I want to thank Fighting Burrito. Fighting Burrito is at 13th and Locust in Des Moines, and also on 117 Welch Ave in Ames. I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, where I've got 2 meetings planned tomorrow. Yeah, great place for a lunch meeting or even evening meeting. And the food's fantastic as well. That's Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Ave in the Beaverdale neighborhood. I also want to thank Diana's Wedding Cakes. That's a business out of Newton. But the wedding cakes will go anywhere that you need them to travel. Give her a shout. Her information is on my website as well. I want to thank, again, Galen Boffman for joining us. I want to thank Iowa Cure for sponsoring this show. Been a good week, folks. I'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks to Maddie Kane, my producer, and thanks to Webcast One Live for providing this studio.